So this is my third unboxing, and I'm sure some of you have just tuned in to watch me struggle to open packaging materials with my grandmother scissors, and that's totally fine. But this is a small box and it should not present any difficulties. At least I hope not. Let's find out. Right, let's get to it. This should not be too difficult, he says. We shall see. So far so good. Hurrah! I actually managed to open the box. What's inside? Air bubble packing, and here is the gizmo. Oh, it's quite well packed. Let's move those out of the way. Aha! Instructions. More instructions. Now, one of the nice things about this, or at least the ordering process, was they'd ask if you want a UK power adapter. So, I assume this is it. Oh, it's one of those multi-plug things. Excellent. That's great. And here is the Hologram Microcosm. Wow. This is, it's slightly heavier and chunkier, I think, than I thought. Right, gosh, that was a success. For me, anyway. Right, I shall plug it in, try it out. Well, I think that went quite well. Anyway, here we are with the Hologram Microcosm. Now, you've probably seen other videos on this. I think there are dozens of videos about the Microcosm on YouTube now. I just thought it was so intriguing I had to buy one. So give me a little while to try it and I shall come back and tell you what I think. Hopefully there will be some demos so you can also hear what I have done with it. And it is quite expensive, and I'll tell you how much I paid for it. So it's been a while, perhaps not for you, but for me it's been 6 weeks, and that's rather a long time to take to give my first impressions. So what have I been doing? Well, I've actually been playing with this thing almost every single day, and I've been trying to work out the best way to present this information to you. And I think I have eventually found a solution. Now, before I bought the pedal, I watched lots and lots of videos, and there are some amazing demos out there. And in these demos, you can hear what the pedal does. However, I didn't find it so easy to find out what the pedal is actually doing, and there is a difference which I shall explain. However, I think I have found a way to tell you exactly what the pedal is doing, so that is what I'm going to do. And in the rest of this video, I will give you a brief overview in case you're not familiar with the Microcosm. I will keep it as short as I possibly can because, as I said, there are lots of other videos about it on YouTube. I will tell you why I bought it and also whether it lives up to my expectations. I will then play a short demo which will show you what it's doing. I will give you a list of pros and cons. I will discuss the price and tell you what I paid. So let's start with a very quick overview, or the quickest overview I can possibly do. So I will use this diagram of the front of the microcosm rather than relying on my very poor photographic skills, because this is easy to see and it will be easier for you to understand what it does and what's going on. So what exactly is the microcosm? Well, I think it can be best described as a granular delay effect. It samples incoming audio, breaks it up into granules or grains, and it can then do lots of different things with them. For example, it can delay them to create delay effects. It can play them back in a different order. It can play them back with different rhythms, and it can pitch shift them. And it can do all these in various ways to create a vast range of very interesting results. It also has a rather mega reverb section. So essentially it has 11 effects which you select with the control here. It's divided into 4 categories. Each effect has 4 presets, if you like, which show up in this center display. Unfortunately, no lights are shown here, but you will see them in the video. They are rather nice and striking orange and blue. So again, in brief, the micro loop section creates micro loops, as you might expect, which are played back in different orders to create sort of overlapping loop effects. A lot of what I'm saying probably won't make a lot of sense until you actually hear the thing in use. The granule section creates, well, as you might expect, granules to create textures. The glitch section creates glitches, and the multi-delay section is probably the easiest to understand. It creates multi-delays in a variety of rhythms and patterns. So once you've selected an effect, you can control its parameters with these knobs. I briefly run through the main ones. Activity determines how complex or dense the effect is. Shape, this is a bit of a weird one. It talks about changing the contour of the sound. You might think it's a little bit like an envelope, but it doesn't quite work in exactly the same way. There's a filter. Yes, we know what filters do. Mix knob to set the mix between the dry signal and the wet signal. Time sets the delay time. That's fairly obvious. Repeats selects the frequency of the repeats. Space is a massive reverb, or at least there are 4 different reverbs. I tend to leave it on Ambient, which is a big lush reverb, which I will show you in the demo. And this sets the looper level. Now, as well as all these effects, the pedal also has a looper section. Now, I have to admit I'm not really into loopers, so this is not something which I've explored in any detail at all. But you can record up to 60 seconds of audio and then overdub and overdub and overdub on top of that. So I'm sure it's very powerful and lots of fun, particularly, of course, if you are into loopers. Now, one other thing I want to mention, you can set the tempo with this tap tempo button, but it also has a MIDI socket. So if you are outputting a MIDI clock, say from an arpeggiator or a sequencer, if you plug that in, then that will sync the tempo, the delays, to the arpeggiator or sequencer, and that actually makes a big difference, especially because some of the effects it produces are quite complex. So if that is running out of sync with the source material, it can get very complicated and confusing. But of course, you don't have to use that. You can play freehand, you can play along with the tempo produced by the unit, or you can just ignore it completely for a really wild effect. Okay, so I said I would tell you why I bought it. Well, I quite like ambient music. I like sounds and soundscapes. I like textures. I like evolving sounds. And on 2 at least of the YouTube videos I saw, the presenter said this creates instant ambient music. So that was like a red flag to a bull. I'm not sure if that's the correct metaphor, but I thought I really have to explore this. I really have to get one. I really have to see what it's like. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's boot it up and see what it does. Now, what I have done, rather than try to create a performance using the microcosm, what I have tried to do is to use the microcosm as an instrument and play the microcosm rather than playing an external instrument and creating different audio notes and patterns for the microcosm to process. That way, I think you can see and hear exactly what the microcosm is doing, which I think is very important. So let's try it out. So I'm only going to use one note, and this is it. Now, there is nothing clever or fancy at all about this. There's no detuning, there's no modulation, there's no filter sweep, there's absolutely nothing special about this sound. This is it. Now I'm going to turn the mix knob fully clockwise so that what you hear will be 100% wet. It will be 100% microcosm. So remember, this is the only thing that is going into the unit. Okay, let's see if we can dial in something more interesting. Let's switch to the next setting. Oh, that was interesting. Just as a reminder, this is the only sound that's going into this. Okay, let's go to the next one. That's obviously a slightly different effect to the previous one. Let's go to the next one. This is to D. Now, one of the things which we haven't done so far is to crank up the reverb. This makes a massive difference because it really cements all the effects together in a very ambient fashion. So you can see the sort of, oh, there we have the pitch shifting. You can see the sort of effect or effects that the microcosm can produce. And as I say, the reverb it's hardly on. If we crank this right up, everything blends into a big sort of ambient drone. Turn it down. And again, this is just from one note. So let's just finish off with this massive reverb setting. And it goes on for a while. There. So I hope you found that useful if you are trying to work out exactly what the microcosm does. However, just bear in mind I was only using one of the effects. Now, if you were watching that video and saw my fingers flying over the controls, you may have thought, oh, he really knows what he's doing. Alternatively, you may have thought he hasn't a clue what he's doing. You would be right in both cases. I know what the controls do and I know what parameters they affect, but I don't always know exactly the result that they are going to produce. So part of it is knowledge and part of it is still experimentation. If you've seen some of my other videos, you may recall that I have a problem with my eyes and I can't read the legend on synthesizers or the microcosm for that matter. So this was actually done not quite blindfold, but I was essentially feeling my way around the controls to adjust them. Although I think that says something about how relatively easy it is to adjust the controls to get different effects. Now, I have to say I got a bit carried away when I was doing this demo, and I have in fact created 3 more demos using 3 more effects, but doing the same thing, putting a particular sound into the microcosm and trying to play the microcosm like an instrument. So I will hopefully get those uploaded maybe today or over the next few days. So when I do, I will leave links to them in the description. If you're watching this in the future, then the link should already be there. And hopefully they will give you an even greater insight into some of the effects that the microcosm can produce. So, pros and cons. Is it in fact the instant ambient machine I was hoping for? Well, sort of. And this is more down to my expectation, if you like, than perhaps any sort of disappointment with the microcosm. As I said, I've been playing with this thing for 6 weeks and it is just a fascinating piece of gear to play with. I find it very addictive and it is very easy to lose yourself in the sounds that it's producing. So although it is not going to write a piece of ambient music for you, it can go a long way to providing a soundscape or a drone or a backdrop or variations in evolving sounds that you could well use in ambient pieces. Now, I said I would tell you how much I paid for it, so let's take a look at that now. So here we are on the Hologram Electronics website and there is information about the microcosm, and as it says here, they are not currently supplying to UK retailers and the only way to get it is to order directly from the shop. And they also tell you how much shipping would be, which is a big 50 American dollars, although they are generous enough to offer free shipping if you order 2 or more pedals. So if we jump to the order page, and the basic price is $459. They currently have stock, so it would be dispatched pretty quickly. I ordered mine a couple of weeks into January of this year, and I was put on the list for February delivery, so they were making them in batches. And they do tell you if you are a foreigner that is not based in America, then they will add tax and import duties and anything else that is required. Now, as far as I can tell, Hologram does not sell through any retailer at all anywhere in the world. At least I can't find one. I have a very good friend in America, and I asked him to see if he could find an American retailer, and he couldn't. He said he would have to buy through the website, and he would pay $459 for the unit, and he would only be charged $12 delivery. And he said he would not be charged any sales tax. Let's hear it for the land of the free. Wonderful. In the UK, this would equate to around £360 at current exchange rates, which is probably par for the course for an upmarket boutique effects pedal like this. But let's go and see what my bill was. So here we are. I got charged the basic price, $459, the wonderful $50 shipping fee, and they added 20% VAT, which we pay in the UK on absolutely everything, and that was over $100 in tax. Ouch. And that came to $610.80. Now, at the time when I ordered this in January, the pound was slightly strong against the dollar. I would normally pay for dollar purchases on PayPal because it's quick and it's easy, but you tend not to get a very good exchange rate from them. So I thought I would buy this through my credit card because you normally get a better exchange rate from your bank, and I think I did. However, they charged me almost £14 as an exchange fee because, of course, it takes them so long and there's so much work involved in this automatic transaction. Anyway, the bottom line for me was £467.21. So you may or may not think that is a reasonable price. I only hope that Hologram has sent a check for $101.80 to Her Majesty's Revenues and Customs, because we certainly need the money. So, pros and cons. Well, I sort of found one real niggle, if you like, and that's to do with the input. It is a true stereo instrument, which is brilliant with individual left and right outputs. It can also accept mono or stereo inputs. However, and I'm using this diagram again to save my poor photography skills, but this is the input, and there is only one. If you plug in a mono jack, that is a one with a tip and a sleeve connection, then that is obviously a mono signal. But if you want to input a stereo signal, you have to input a TRS, a tip ring sleeve stereo jack plug. So they both go into the one socket. Now I have quite a few synthesizers. Most of them, I think apart from the Grandmother, are stereo, and they have individual left and right stereo outputs, which is exactly what you want. So to feed one of those into the microcosm, you need an adapter. So that's a bit fiddly and that's a bit faffy, but in my opinion, worse than that, you have to go into the global menu settings to tell the thing whether you have plugged in a mono signal or a stereo signal. Now, this design feature, or lack of design, is absolutely bewildering given the amount of care and attention which seems to have gone into the unit. Other bits of gear which accept mono or stereo inputs have two inputs. If you connect a mono signal into one of them, then the unit says, oh, there's only one signal here, this is mono. If you plug two signals in, it knows it's a stereo signal. Now, if you look at the back here, I think there is plenty of room for another socket. So why they have not updated this is beyond me. It is very annoying. So if you are swapping between mono and stereo signals, it is a faff and a hassle. So the thing's been in production for quite a while now, so I don't think there's any excuse for them not updating this aspect of the unit. And that is probably the biggest con I can think of. Now, whether this unit appeals to you or not, well, only you can decide, and whether you think it is worth the price, well, that also depends on you and where in the world you live. Now, although I have been using the microcosm for about 6 weeks, I am far from an expert on it. But if you do have any questions about it, I will do my best to answer them as soon as I can if you leave the questions in the comments. And if you have enjoyed this video, and if you like electronic music and synthesizers and ambient music and soundscapes and all sorts of wonderful stuff like that, then perhaps you would like to consider subscribing to the channel, ringing the bell. Thank you, so you get informed of new videos as soon as I release them, and of course clicking the big thumb, that really does help too. As always, I very much appreciate you spending time with me, watching my videos and listening to my music. And don't forget to check out the other microcosm jams or performances, which will be linked down below. So that's it for this video. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.